I think all of us have something that we're supposed to create and to share to, promote a message, like a specific message.
Yeah.
And so I think for the most part, all of us can do a better job being intentional with, one, what is the message that you're sending to people? And then two, like, how are you ministering? Or are you ministering? Or are you just so caught up, like, in your day-to-day stuff or making money or whatever? Like, it's great if you have this multi-million-dollar company.
Facts.
But if it's not ministering to anybody, and ministry doesn't have to just be, oh, I'm donating money. I'm funneling money into these nonprofits and stuff. Like, what can you do to directly minister to people?
Welcome to another episode of Around the Way podcast, where we help you get around your obstacles and find a way to redesign your life. I am here. We are here on another episode. How are you feeling today?
I feel good. It's Sunday, right?
Yeah, Sunday. It's Sunday. You guys are probably going to see this on a Monday.
Yeah.
But it's been a really great week.
Mm-hmm.
Like a really great week. I feel like a lot has happened.
Yeah.
A lot is happening.
Yeah.
I feel like we've talked about seasons a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about summer. Last time we were on, we talked about summer. We talked about a lot of the different things that are shifting, a lot of the different things that are shaking. And I want to give credit to my relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our relationships are really the breadcrumbs to our destiny. And they're allowing us as individuals to see past what we even believe that we could even experience, to see past like what we really believe that, we could create within our lives. So I look back 4 years ago where I was, and then I look back, today where I am. And it's really inspiring for me to be able to look forward 4 years to where I'm going. You know what I'm saying?
4 years is a long time. Like, it's not a long time, but I just know, like, I think anybody listening, if you think about where you were 4 years from now, it's like completely different. And I don't think that's coincidence, because you think about, there's 4 seasons in a year. I think you think about 4 years, you're going through at least probably 12 different seasons.
No, literally.
It's like you think about who you were as a freshman in high school to who you were as a senior. It's like completely different person.
Nah, that's
and then
crazy.
College, completely different sets of people.
That's crazy. Nah, we that's actually interesting. Like our school systems are every 4 years.
Yeah.
Right? Looking at Kyle, first grade to 5th grade to 9th grade to freshman in college to adult.
Yeah.
It's all of these different seasons. And I think, what's important about now, and I think now more than ever, is that I think people are becoming more self-aware, and really being able to engage in the reflective process. Like, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and I was asking her, I was like, where did you receive the representation of a great relationship? The representation of a great marriage, the representation of love. Like, where's the first place that you saw love? And then she said, I saw it in my house. I was like, describe what love looked like in your household. And she was like, that's a really good question. And then she, went on to say she saw her parents, continuing to argue, but they would come back after the argument and have sex. And
she knew they were doing that?
Yeah, crazy, right? Hold on. So there's a message. There's a message.
I can never point to a time where
Nah, I don't even want to point to a time. Like, I don't even want to reflect on that one. So they would argue, have sex, and then they would go, and then they would talk, watch a movie, and then they would wake up the next morning and go to work, obviously, right? And it was, as she was talking, I was like, that's love? I was like,
that's not what I want.
What the hell? It's like, Jesus Christ. This is not what I thought. This is not how I grew up.
No.
But it was really interesting, and it's kind of not to judge her at all. It was just like, I don't even think that she like she was very reflective and she was able to answer all of my questions, but I don't really believe that she even thought about what just came out of her mouth. And then I was like, I came back and said, I was like, so walk me through your previous relationships. And, she was like, it would be a lot of disagreements. It would be a lot of misunderstandings. But then I challenged her, and then I was like, well, were y'all intimate? And then she was like, yeah. And then she was like, it's interesting because, after every conversation, it would lead into intimacy. And then I was like, wow. I was like, did you just hear what you just said? I was like, you've essentially recreated like, what you
think is love.
What you think is love.
Right.
And she was like, wow. Right. And, hopefully, she like she listens to this and really hears like the message that I gained from that. Right. And what I believe, and why I kind of just circling back around to really talk about this generation, I believe is more reflective and a lot more focused, hyper-focused on being self-aware than any other generation, in my opinion. And I believe it's up to us, as millennials, to create the representation that maybe we didn't have but we wanted in order for us to recreate what the next generation creates for the generation after them.
I think that's a really good point, because I think in any situation that you think about, like when I think about my parents, you think about your parents, and then whoever that was, them thinking about their parents. You have two options. You either say, okay, this is my representation of what love is, or this is what it's not. And so she chose this is what it is.
Exactly.
And then, but I think, because I know with me and I know with you, there are things that we saw in our parents, in our households that was love, and then some other things that we don't feel is a representation of love for what we want.
Exactly.
And so I think the ability to discern and see the difference between the two is how you can start to, like you said, recreate that idea for like children and grandchildren, because then they'll look and they'll be like, my parents, this is how they showed each other love. And so to be cognizant of like the areas where I feel like my parents could do better or could have done better over the years, purposely saying, I'm going to do better.
No, definitely. It's interesting, right? Because for me, I've always wanted to recreate what my parents were in the household, right? And I've been in a lot of relationships where, not a lot, but I've been in different relationships where I've wanted what my parents had, what I grew up in, but didn't know how to communicate it at the time. So it would create challenges and controversy and conflict within the relationship. And it didn't help because I lacked the maturity, the emotional maturity and the communicative maturity to being able to facilitate conversation within my relationship. Like, hey, this is why I have this expectation. Yeah. This is why I have this standard. This is why you crossing this boundary. This is why this is a boundary. Because, I saw it and I liked what I saw. I think so many times we're teaching people to unlearn a lot of behaviors and habits and different experiences and expectations. But some of those things that we learn are actually good for us to learn. That's true. I think it's this fake wokeness where it's like you unlearn everything so that you can become what God intends for you to be. But like some of the things that I've learned and experienced, I wouldn't want to unlearn them. I would want to continue to embrace them. I would want to embrace those experiences and the things that I was exposed to, because I really believe that it's helped me get ahead of the curve. It's helped me not settle. It's helped me be able to enter into a beautiful relationship where all of the things that I experienced in previous relationships, I can honestly say were not good enough.
Really?
Yeah, it's like at the time I've always been met with that question, am I not good enough? And I've never been that person, to communicate like, yeah, you aren't good enough. But as you enter in, as you actually set expectations and then reflect on the expectations you have and where those come from, and you realize that those things are like amazing, and then you have somebody that sits, you know, next to you or across the table from you that provides you with all of those different things, then I believe it's gotten me to the point where it's like, wow, you know, I was settling before, but I no longer have to settle. And it's a happy feeling. It's a joyful feeling, you know?
Yeah. I see two really great things in what you just said. The first, kind of going back a little bit, is just, I think one thing that people don't realize too is the things that we see that we like in our parents and stuff like that, that we might want to emulate or recreate. We, as children, don't have the insight and the maturity to know what it looks like to recreate that. Like, I know, I believe we had a conversation with that, like, one day when your dad was here and he was visiting. And I'm like, I know, and you know, because we have parents that have been married for decades.
Literally.
That every season is not a good season for them. And so they're, like, figuring out how to create the picture and the feelings and all this stuff in the household that you want on the bad days. It doesn't just look like how we thought as children. They just show up and they're happy and like they love each other and stuff. We didn't get to see the conversations that happened when we went to sleep.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. And it's interesting because I didn't get to see those. It's like two different approaches, right? And I learned this. Shout out to my boy Josh Laws, photographer out here in Charlotte.
So excited for that.
Nah, that is. So it's an interview that we did, last week, and he asked some very powerful questions. And it's interesting because until somebody asks the question that you never reflected on, you never know the response that's going to come with it.
That's true.
Right? So he asked me a question, and I began to communicate and explain how I resented my parents for some time because they didn't sit us down and have those conversations.
Really?
Yeah. Because I knew and I felt that something was wrong. And, you know, as kids, it's always communicated to you that, you know, stay in a child's place. And, you know, we got this. We're parents. This is what we're going to do to figure it out. Until years later where you recognize that things were not okay. We weren't that the Joneses, you know what I'm saying?
Cosby.
We weren't the Cosby family. There were real things that I wish I would have been communicated or in the loop for, and it's talked about, and my parents don't say it anymore, but the response used to be like, you're the sensitive one and you always take it personally, so that's why we kind of don't tell you. That was
you too?
Nah, definitely.
Oh, that's me.
Definitely. And, you know, my sister would know.
I've never heard this story before.
Yeah, my sister would know. My brother would know. And then it's just like, yo, like, what the
why
don't I know?
You.
Like, know what's going on here?
You're the baby.
So it's kind of like they were coddling me, but they were providing a crutch that created an inability for me to emotionally connect with women. And instead, I would run at the first sight of conflict instead of being able to see those crucial conversations happening behind closed doors because I never saw the conflict. Like, yeah, when things are amazing, like we're going out, we're eating as a family, we're doing all these amazing things and people are praising us. But when things are challenging and I see, you know, a parent not come home or traveling or them not speaking or whatever the case may be, and it feels different, I don't know how to handle that. So it was kind of like a sense of abandonment internally, right? So I think, and I say all of that because I think my parents have done an amazing job, and it's kind of like as a parent, you do what you believe is best at the time. But what I've implemented with my son is open communication about everything.
Because of that,
right? So like we were having we do 45-minute walks like almost every morning now. And I was walking with him this morning, and I was asking him, I said, you know, Carter, what are some of the things that you would want me to change or do better as a father, right? And I'm talking to a 5-year-old kid. And a lot of times we don't ask our kids or kids in general their opinion. And he was like, you know, nothing. And I'm like, no, like, do you want to go different places? Do you want to eat different foods? Like, do you want me to spend more time? Do you want me to work less? He was like, no. And I was like, all right. So he was like, no, he did say, I want a milkshake. And then I was like, all right,
I was going to come up with something.
I got you. But then he continued and talked about another perspective, about how there are times where he feels like, we work too much as parents. And he would rather us play with him more or do these different things. And then I came back and asked him, I was like, why don't you have these conversations? Like, why don't you say anything? He was like, I don't know, I forget. So I was like, to implement something moving forward, what I want you to do is when you feel bad, when you feel sad, when you feel like something's on your mind, when you feel like something's uncomfortable or you don't like it, tell me. Or tell your mom, right? Tell somebody. Because what that's going to do is we can't help you feel better if you don't have those conversations.
Right. We don't know.
Because I don't know. So I was like, you being happy is important. Like, you feeling love is important. You having everything that you need is important. So I need you to do that. And he looked back at me. He was like, okay. So I say that for any parent that's listening, right? For any, for any kid that's listening, for anybody in general that's listening. Really reflect on the different experiences that you had and extract the good and the bad. But also extract and implement the good and the good, right? And what I mean by that is once you extract the bad of what you didn't like, create a system where you could recreate that for the next generation or for your current relationship so it could be better. Once you extract the good, of course, re-implement it and re-repeat it. You don't have to unlearn the good. Like, you keep the good. And through your life, you're going to run into different experiences, and you're going to now know because you're going to have an arsenal of different things that you can use in different experiences with different people. So that's just definitely one thing that I've reflected on.
This is so insightful, Kyle. Because I agree with that. I feel like my story was opposite. Welcome back. That was our last commercial break, probably. But I was saying, I feel like this is so insightful because my experience was just very different. So my parents included me on a lot of stuff, like a lot of stuff. Yeah. And I think, I feel like we've had conversations like about this before. And I think at the time, it can seem a little like strange when other people don't experience that same thing. And so then like me, I'm like, we could work through anything because I've seen my parents argue and I've seen them get over it. So like, it's okay. Like, we could work through everything. And so it's interesting that you say that. I feel like that's like an aha moment for me because wanting, like when you see conflict, it's like, it's not supposed to be like this. Cause I've heard you say that before, like, it's not supposed to be this like this. And then,
and it's like, I don't even, it's interesting because I've gotten to the point now, right, where I realized that you asked me something. I was aggravated one time, and you were like, tell me what you're feeling, right? And I was like, I don't really know. I'm trying to process my feelings because I think I haven't been conditioned to process feelings quickly. I've been conditioned to process everything else quickly. So I'm a processor in regards to, like, you give me something like a thought. I can process thoughts quickly.
And a strategy.
I can process logic quickly. I can process strategies quickly. I can come up with a strategy within a minute. But emotions, I'm different, right? I learned something, a neurodivergent. And those are people, based upon my research, and if I'm wrong, somebody definitely check me in the comments. It's just people in general that, process information quickly and need you to break things down, go slower. And I use that example because I am neurodivergent when it comes to my emotions. And I think we have all of these different personality types and all these different things and all of these different ways to work with people. But there's nothing out there that really can there's no test out there that can go through your emotional state, right? Because that's internal, so I say that because I process emotions quickly because I was never raised to deal with them, because I never was raised to deal with them. I never had a representation of how to deal with it, and I never had coaching or strategy or resources to help me prevail through it. So in my mind, every time I've seen conflict up until obviously this point where I'm definitely more emotionally mature, what I would do is try to process it logically, take out the emotion and go through X's and O's. Then that would hurt my ability to connect with people and be empathetic. So now that would create more emotion on the other side. Or what I would see is people running, people leaving the house, people going to get space, breakups happening, different things happening. So then I saw that. And then friendships that I had, my guy friends, when they would get into it, they would just leave their relationships. My, female friends, they would just leave their men, or guys and women, they would then practice infidelity. So my only representation was either running, go find someone else, go lay up with somebody else, or go work and find something else to do. It was never
work through it.
It was never work through it. However, my parents did an amazing job with working through it.
You just didn't see the process.
I just didn't see
to
the
know
process.
How to do it.
I saw the outcome. It's like, oh snap, daddy and mommy are still here.
That means they never fight.
They never fight. They never go through anything. So when I fight with someone, or not even fight, or like get into a disagreement, it's like, what the hell is this?
It's not supposed to be like this.
And it's beautiful. It's beautiful because like now it's like I don't like being challenged in public.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a pride thing, definitely. To somebody else, it's maybe it's just like an accountability thing, right? But because I never saw my parents challenge each other in public, it was never one of those things, unless it was obviously jokingly. So, I've had a lot of reflective conversations over these past few weeks, and even with the podcast, this has been therapy for me. But again, shout out to my man Josh Laws, because he brought out a side of me that I didn't even recognize was hidden, and now that it's been brought to the forefront, I'm really appreciative of that experience that I even learned about myself.
No, that's. I love these conversations. I love conversations where I actually learn something about you. Like, it's not just us.
Yeah.
Having a conversation for the audience. People, yeah. So I feel like I learned something about you today.
No, definitely. I think, one thing for me, right? One thing for me is continuous growth. Elon Musk said something. It was super dope. The founder of Tesla, if anybody doesn't know. And he said he was talking on Joe Rogan's podcast. Shout out to my boy Joe Rogan. Haven't met you
Your
yet,
boy.
But just know I'm coming. And he was saying that if you're not creating something, you're simply deteriorating, right? And I was like, that's such a profound thing. He was like, and then he asked him, he said, who were we made in the image of? He said, the Creator. And then he was like, so the Creator created us to do what? Create. So if we're not creating, what are we doing? We're disobeying. And if we're disobeying, then what's our purpose? You have none. So it was very profound. He didn't say it exactly like that, but it was kind of like what I gathered from it. And for me, I'm always trying to create spaces where I'm able to explore the depths of who I am in order to allow the world to go deeper in their own souls to pull other people out, right? So in order for me to create a vision, I have to first understand the vision of who I can be, but first go back into the history of who I am so that I can take away all of the things that would hinder that vision from being a reality in order for me to understand what things I need to introduce to be able to create that reality.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. I feel like we're all here for ministry. Yeah. And when you think about ministry, you think about the church and like you being up on the pulpit. But I think all of us have something that we're supposed to create and to share to, promote a message, like a specific message. Yeah. And so I think for the most part, all of us can do a better job being intentional with, one, what is the message that you're sending to people? And then two, like, how are you ministering? Or are you ministering? Or are you just so caught up, like, in your, your day-to-day stuff or making money or whatever? Like, it's great if you have this multi-million-dollar company. Facts. But if it's not ministering to anybody, and ministry doesn't have to just be, oh, I'm donating money. I'm funneling money into these nonprofits and stuff. Like, what can you do to directly minister to people?
That's facts. That's facts. So it's like obviously it's the three T's, right?
Obviously.
So it's your talent, your time, and your treasure. You know, if you have a talent, you know, how can you be leveraging that talent for others that aren't talented?
Right.
If you have a little bit more time, and that time could be 30 minutes, you know, how could you leverage that time to be able to serve or sow into somebody else? You know, how could you leverage that time? Maybe you have a lunch break and you could hop on a kid's Zoom session for 30 minutes and sow into these kids. Or if you have treasure, you know, how could you become a sponsor for the Around the Way podcast? Or obviously, you know, how could you, you know, leverage your philanthropic efforts in order to give back and tithe, whatever word you want to be able to use. But you said something that was really cool, and I think you overlooked it. But I kind of want to just extract two different perspectives. So you said, like, what's your message to the world? But I believe that one thing that you've said that I love is kind of like what message are you sending to the world, not vocally, but visually,
right,
or body language, or energy, or relationships. Like, based upon your relationships,
what does that
if
say?
I was to only judge you on your relationships,
what would I think about
or
you?
not judge, because we have a bad connotation with that word. If I was to only observe you, or analyze you based upon your relationships, what would the message be sent to me about you?
Exactly.
Right? I think a lot of times we have a lot of messages that we send out to the world, whether it be through social media, whether it be through vocals, whether it be through, you know, just our ability to leverage our senses, right? But my question is the message that you're sending through your words in alignment with the message that I see about you that's also being sent to the world, right? So it's kind of like, let's look at your relationships. Let's look at your character. Let's look at your decisions. If I could only judge you based upon the decisions that no one knows about that you make, would that same message be the message that you're actually telling people?
Because there's two different types of people. There's the type, and I don't really knock anybody, but there's the type of person, because I've done this before. I was talking to you about this. I go and, like, I'll be in Chipotle and I'll be like, ooh, God is telling me to pay for this person behind me. There's the person that does that and nobody knows about it. Then there's the person that's like, as soon as they walk out, like, I was in Chipotle today, like, with the phone. Like, I was in Chipotle today and I saw this family that and like, whatever.
Make it into a whole message.
Yeah.
Like, bro, just chill.
And so do you have more moments in private that nobody knows about where you're doing good, or more moments in private where you're doing bad?
That's deep. That's deep. Or do you publicize everything that you should have been doing in private?
Yeah, which I don't really knock if you want to, because I do see the value in, okay, I'm going to tell everyone that this is what I did because I'm hoping that you now go out and do it too. You know,
it's deep that you say that, because my boy David Shands, shout out to my boy David Shands from Social Proof Podcast, from Everything Entrepreneur, right? He said something. He posted something, and he was talking about how he was in the drive-through, right? And he did an IG story. This was months ago, probably even before the pandemic. It was a while ago. And he paid for somebody's food in the drive-through, but obviously they didn't know. And he encouraged everyone in the comments and then also on his story to go out and do the same thing, right? To continue to sow into the world, because it's the giver that gets, right? When I saw that story, it spoke to me. It really motivated me, and I got up off my ass at that moment and went out somewhere and did the exact same thing. And it felt good. And I obviously tagged him in it, and I was like, thank you. Like, it wasn't even about doing it for the marketing. It was really just about, like, this felt good. Thank you for not even just encouraging me, but pushing me to not just be so focused on Kyle's world, where there's a lot of other worlds out there that we've sometimes forgotten about, like my mother earlier, I had a great conversation with her, and, I obviously just put a contract down on a house, and, they're going through the building process, and I'm super excited. This is my first house that I'm building. First house, right? This is, like, super cool. And I think it's a it's a very emotional experience in a lot of different ways, right? Just facing a lot of emotions. But I posted that on social media and then told the story about, me coming to Charlotte and all these different things and every different step that took place for me to then build this house with my son, seeing the whole process, right? And my mom, she, we had a conversation and she was like, I want you to begin to start doing things. And after it's already done, then you post. You post the win, right?
Yeah.
Because there's people out here that don't want you to win. There's people out here that hate to see you continue to succeed. And you don't want people in your process to distract you, to put out bad energy, to pray for you not to get it. Or, you don't want people while you're in process to put you in a place where it stops your process or it hinders your process.
And
right?
Okay.
No. That's really it.
Because I just want to say, I think another thing too, and it just kind of occurred to me here. I wouldn't be surprised if this happens to you. Is there will be certain people who will see you winning, and they'll want to come back in your life to cause disruption.
Yeah, facts.
And because they'll see like, oh, okay, he's happy and he's doing this and he's doing that. And then their spirit, because it's not in the right place, will be like just pulling them towards you. And then you'll just start having these little spurts of disruption and unrest and all this stuff. And it's like, I thought we moved on past this. Like, I thought you were coming back with good energy and all this stuff. Like, but their spirit didn't want to come with good energy.
It's crazy because as I've realized in my life, right? On my lows, people with bad energy have great energy. On my highs, people with bad energy have bad energy. So it's like, right?
That's a good one.
That's a word.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I've realized how to, going back to that self-awareness. And it's interesting that everything's happening in the way that it happens. God wasn't willing to give me a house until I was able to clear the land in my spirit from certain people and things and situations, right?
Yeah.
So I truly believe that this is a God move, right? Because I've let go of a lot of things. I've given a lot of things to him. And I believe, and I've, been more disciplined in my decisions, set boundaries and expectations within relationships, been more of a steward with my finances, served my community. So I feel like there was a lot of things that have happened and transpired that allowed me to then get to this point. And that's why this is so surreal and such a amazing feeling, because this isn't like for the show. Like, I really put in work to get to this point. And I feel like a lot of people see this as like, oh my God, you're continuing to win. But there was a lot of losses in the process of me being able to win. And I think we have to stop celebrating before it's our time to celebrate. Like, we have to stop celebrating before the game's over. We got to stop celebrating before the actual race is over. There was a lot of times, and there was a season where it's kind of like that fake it till you make it mentality. I had to stop faking it because I realized that when I made it, I wasn't going to appreciate it because I put out that I had this, already. This, and this. So it's like, you just got to keep up instead of like really sit with it and like, damn, like I did it. So like when I stopped faking it, I was able to now, when we got to this point, like really feel what making it and making it happen feels like. Yeah. It's just different.
That is different. That's really different. I think that's just, it's so important though. Like, because if everybody thinks that you already have this, they already think you got a house. So when I actually get the house, nobody can be excited for me because they were already there. Like, there. Now I can't celebrate until I get the mansion and I get the jet and I get all this other stuff. So you just put
more pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel like you said something like you said something to me the other day, like you live a very simple life now.
Yeah.
And I do, because I'm not lying. Like, I'm really living my truth. Like, I do have, different things that I've worked on. I put it out there. I do simple things like I podcast. I have my online author programs. I'm a parent. Like, literally, it's the 3 Ps, yo. It's podcasting, parenting, and programming. That is it.
I want you to give a message to people, because I know you got a message for them. For people, and that'll probably be the end. For people who they want to move on to the next phase, they see it, they have all these things that they're wanting to manifest, but they want that stuff to manifest before they give whatever God is asking them to give him.
That's a good question. I don't really have a message. I have a story.
Okay.
Right. I wanted a lot of things in my lifetime. And when I was out here being sexually promiscuous, God wasn't going to give me a wife. When I was out here blowing through money, God is not going to give me a bigger responsibility because I can't even handle the small. When I was out here putting my career before my son, God is not going to continue to grow my career because he knows my son is my priority. When I was out here lying about what I had, God is not going to grant it to me because I'm not being truthful to him and what he needs me to have at this season. So I guess that kind of just goes back. It is essentially a message, right? I want you to be honest, right? Anybody listening right now that's in that season where, that Kiana just explained, just be honest. Be honest with your circumstance. Be honest with your situation. Because at the moment that you're honest about where you really are, whether you can't figure it out, whether you don't know how to get out of a relationship, whether you don't have enough money, whether you're just unhappy, once you figure out what it is that's going on, my then next step for you would be to ask yourself, what steps or what experiences led to you getting into that circumstance? Like what bad decisions? So like kind of backtracking. I recognized that I didn't have any money because I went into my accounts and then I saw that I would be spending $2,000 a month on eating out every single month consistently. It's not that I didn't have any money. It's I had a poor choice. It's not that I didn't have any money. I just had poor systems in place that allowed me, that was a result of me not having additional money to be able to invest, right? I recognize when I continued to have drama with women that it wasn't the drama. Drama was the result of me not having a system of boundaries in place where you stop letting people text you at certain hours. You stop saying yes to everything. You stop letting people come over to your house late night. It's simple. So for me, what worked for me is that I had to assess what the hell was I doing that continued to lead me in the direction that I wasn't even happy, or that created all of this uncomfortability. And once I then had that understanding in that real moment with Kyle, looking in the mirror with my own boss, Kyle, then I needed to write down systems to put in place to stop this from happening. Because you don't have to cut people off. You don't have to cut things out. You have to put systems in place. And if you follow the system, if you're disciplined to the system, if you trust the system will allow you to not have to do those other things.
And they'll dismiss themselves.
They will.
When they're not getting what they wanted.
They will. Now, what I am going to say is as you're forming new norms, you're going to go through a storming process. You are. So the storm is going to come right when you create the system. I promise you. So just get ready for it. It's going to be some controversy. It's going to be some adversity, right? But if you stay disciplined through the adversity, I guarantee then that's where God's going to give you something where you're going to get a blessing. You're going to get one, like a small one. It's going to be a small one. I need you to celebrate it. I need you to thank God. And then I need you to just stay disciplined for a little bit more. Those people are going to remove themselves. The branches are going to be cut by him. And then the bigger blessing is going to come. And then that's going to then remind you that all the little work that you did over that week or that month or that day or that year or those years that it took was worth it. So that would be my message to anybody, right? Reflect, be aware, hold yourself accountable, put a system in place. Once the storm comes, be faithful, trust God, but stay grateful. Keep working through it. And I guarantee you'll make it through it.
Lovely, Kyle.
This is Around the Way podcast, and we'll see you guys next episode.
Bye, guys.